Hello and welcome to Old School Garage. My name is Nicholas. Today I'm going to be working on my L1000 and I'm going to be taking these fenders off, both fenders, driver side and passenger side, and taking the bumper off. The reason I'm going to be taking these parts of the truck off is basically so I can get to the inside underneath the truck a little bit easier without having to tip the cab forward. So if I just want to do something simple, I can get to the sides of that motor. But the main thing is going to be I need to fix this up here. Obviously all this cracking and everything, all this Bondo that's up on the fender here, and getting into that. But another big thing that I'm going to be looking for is rot on the cab along these mounting points up here. There's a mount right here that mounts to this big structural beam, and then another mount right here with these two bolts. I need to make sure that these are intact. So, you know, as I'm tipping the truck constantly now because it's being used more, I need to make sure that everything's all right there. I don't need the cab just falling off on one side and it twisting the entire cab apart and bad stuff. I doubt anything like that would happen, but I'm taking precautions here. So, removing this bumper will give me the ability to put the old one back on that I have on the way, and I'll be able to see what it's going to look like with the old bumper, which I think I'm going to like it a lot more. But it's just going to be a big taking everything off this truck and to be able to get to all the servicing components of it. So let's take a look at this fender and what I'm going to have to do to get it off. All right, so I'm over here on the side of the truck and we're looking at the side of the fenders here. And if you take a closer look, you can see there's some bolts running down the side of it. But we've got some corrosion at each point, probably galvanic corrosion between the aluminum and the steel of this step here and the bolts. So I'm going to have to remove these, but to get this little step off, each one of these guys I'm pretty sure are going to be rivet nutted in, which means the Phillips head is going to strip, and then, yeah, I get to drill it all out. So I'm just going to skip right to grinding. I'm going to grind the heads of these screws off just so I can get the steps off easier. And then hopefully these bolts will either break or come loose. And then on this other side, we've got screws. So we'll see what's going to go on here. They have nuts on the back side or J-clips. It's kind of alternating, probably from people changing them over the years. So let's hope this doesn't become a broken bolt fest in terms of everything's a pain. Ooh, these are old. They are kind of worn out, like they've been hit. Yep. All right, it's not supposed to look like this. So that's a headlight lens. Don't think I've ever seen that. All right, now as I said before, I'm just gonna grind these 4 off, or 5 actually, if I can count. I'm just gonna grind these off, and then this guy will come free, and then I'll be able to see what's going on here all along this sill plate. and we'll see how much rot is in here. So let's get to grinding. The sun's killing me a little bit, but you can see I ground all these down. It was a lot easier than drilling, so now I got to take all these bolts off on the side, and then we're good to go. So let's begin that. Of course, I forgot to hit record when I was taking these last bolts out, but I disconnected the parking lamp over here, so I'm ready to pull the fender. Oh, there we go. I did some scraping. You can see it's very pitted here. There's one hole right there next to the bolt. So there's obviously been moisture that's been sitting there and rotting the aluminum out. So you can see this stuff isn't going to be fun. A lot of this will have to be repaired. For the most part though, it looks pretty intact, which I'm very happy about. There's a couple spots where the steel's at where it's, you know, like that. Let me see if I can get that. Nope. It's close. Oh, it's close to coming off. There's stuff like that that's wanting to come right off. You can see in there, oh, maybe not, the the sun's in my view here. It's pretty rotted, and that's just from sitting, and probably all the years of abuse. But for what it is, I'm pretty happy with it. It could be a lot worse. So we're gonna have to do some acid on a lot of this. You can see here, this is where the main cab support reaches. This guy right here. And it's completely blown out, which we won't know really until we get into it whether it's gonna be stable or not. It looks pretty stable to me. A lot of this hasn't rotted yet. So it was shocking. These front screws are actually just screws, they're not bolts. I didn't know that, but for the most part, the cab seems to be in pretty good condition. There's a couple parts where obviously I was just saying it was rotted, but you can see underneath the rocker here, it is just in pretty good condition. So let's get to this other side and see what it's gonna look like over there. Hopefully we have the same thing or better. All right, I tried drilling out this step here, and I think grinding was a little bit better. It was a lot easier to control with the grinding, but I've obviously got this disconnected with all my bolts. Double check one more time. All right. She's a little bit froze up. I'm missing something? Because I feel like I am. All right, that's free. Everything is so bad. There we go. Out now, upon inspection on this side, it looks like we are a lot healthier in terms of corrosion. Overall, we look all right. A lot better than that other side. That other side is going to take some repair. Let's see, we got some corrosion here. That's just water sitting. This front edge is a wee bit worse. So that's all corrosion. You can see that back plate right there is the steel. So basically this entire piece of aluminum right here is rotted out. Now, do I think that's going to limit me from tilting the cab? Obviously not, because I've had the cab tilted already. But if you look, we're completely solid here. We're not bulging out on this bottom plate right here. Same with this guy. It's just pushing out where the bolts are. So as long as I undo these, get all this corrosion out, treat it, I can prolong it enough to where I can get some good repair done. Because this is all has to be TIG welded. I can't stick weld it or anything like that. Now that we got the fenders off, let's work on getting this bumper off. There we go. All right, now that the bumper's off, I can see where the original mounts were. It looks like these might have been the original mounts, which obviously have been covered, so I'm gonna have to cut this plate off. Looks like 1/2-inch plate on both sides. So, one thing about these trucks, specifically the L1000s, they have the same bumper as the C-Series trucks. So if you have an L1000 and you're looking for an original bumper, it's the same exact bumper as the C-Series. So we can now see under here a lot easier. We can see our front brake valve, and it looks like our engine mounts are kind of broken down a little bit. So we're probably gonna have to replace those, but this truck has been through a lot, so I don't expect perfect condition. But it looks pretty solid underneath here. No rust jacking on the frame in the spots where it's connected to a cross member. So we look good there. The springs look even. There's no warping in them or anything like that, because we know this truck has been in a front end collision, mainly with the fender damage. And then you can see this dent right here, straight on this side. It's nice and flat, but bent in up here. Same thing with some cracking here. So all that has to be addressed. But first things first is corrosion, and we're trying to limit the corrosion here. So I've been over here working on this side mainly, getting the corrosion nice and taken care of. I was able to chip away all the major bits of corrosion back to aluminum with some acid. So it's been sitting pretty much overnight. But I got it basically cleaned up. I don't know if you can see it on the camera, but there's a lot of material that's been eaten away. The worst part underneath the door is not this guy, but that right there. So I'm probably going to end up making these out of stainless because they're pretty rotted out. So are the brackets. Brackets could easily be recovered, but it'd probably be nicer just to remake it. So the same thing with this. You can see it's filled with rust. Completely rotted out right there. But all this little stuff right here has to be replaced. It's not really a pinch rail, but I guess you could call it that. So that's probably gonna have to be replaced. I'm gonna have to cut this section out. Probably cut this section out right here. And then same thing with these front brackets. So the main thing up here I'm worried about is just getting the corrosion out of here so it stops eating away the aluminum. Mainly all I've been doing is chipping out, and I'll show that in a second on this side. But I'm just trying to limit the spread with acid after I've chipped it all away, and you can still see some powder coming out, so I haven't got everything. But this mount up here is the one that I'm really concerned about, that needs to be in good condition, and both sides look pretty decent. But you can see right here, it's not eating away on this front, so it's still very strong on this main mounting point right here. It's just really eating away, so it's not going to be full strength. So ideally, I would pull the cab, but that's a lot of work. And pulling the cab entails a lot of other stuff that has to come apart. And I'd like to start getting the truck together in a way of that it's running and driving to a point, or not driving, but get it to a point where it's stable. I can move the truck around and then I can worry about repairing it. But in the future, to pull this and actually fix this corrosion, this cab will either have to get jacked up and remove the supports or pull the cab entirely. So we'll get to that point down the road when we get there. But right now we're just trying to get everything kind of sealed up so it's not corroding anymore as I have it right now. So to eat this corrosion away, I need to really work on just getting the powder out of there so that I can actually get back to bare aluminum. So I'm going to use a couple tools, chisel and a punch, and just sit here and break this stuff away, get it back to that bare aluminum. I'm not going to be able to get everything because I physically can't get behind the frame back here, but I'm just trying to get as much as I possibly can for the time being so that I can get acid on this and start to eat away that corrosion. So same thing up here, I've already had it soaking in acid, so that's starting to eat away at that corrosion a little bit. It's not a perfect solution, but it at least gets it from corroding further. So I've soaked this in acid, and you can see a lot of the corrosion has been eaten away. Still some left, but it's a lot better. It looks pretty intact near these edges. Definitely not perfect or ideal, but it'll work. So that's all I need it to do for now. So this side, still got to remove these J-clips. They just got to be pried out. These tops need to be pried out, and then they'll slide back through, and they'll all come out. This guy's got to get removed. But far less corrosion on this side. The sill plate, or the top of the rocker, whatever you want to call it, I haven't treated anything yet up here. You can see it's still pretty corroded, but far less than the other side. So overall, could be a lot worse. The cab could be sitting on the ground right now, and that would absolutely suck, but it's not. So still a lot of work to go on this truck, but we got some progress made today. Now I can start to see everything on this bottom side, and I can start to work on some wiring and air lines. So stay tuned for more, and I'll see y'all in the next video. I appreciate you watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll have this old girl on the road soon. So have a blessed one.